Hey filmmakers! Today we're going to take a look at a new motorized slider, and then I'm going to show you how to get really cool motion time lapses. This new slider is called the Chip Slider from YC Onion, and I definitely consider it to be one of the most affordable motorized sliders on the market. I have the longer 39-inch model, and to get something comparable to that length from one of the more popular brands like Rhino or Serp, it's gonna cost you somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000. Whereas at the time of filming this, it's about $300 on Amazon. So there's just a huge difference there. So if you're looking to get into a motorized slider, this is definitely a much more affordable option. Now let's take a look at some of the motion time lapses and slider shots that I got using it, and then I'll go over some of the different settings I use to get the best looking motion time lapses. There are a few tips that I have to help you get better looking motion time lapses. The first one is to put something in the foreground. When you're doing those slides from left to right, you will not see really any motion if it's super wide angle and you're looking at a landscape and there's nothing to really show you that the camera is actually moving. So I always recommend getting like a bush or a tree or a rock or a bench or just really anything in the foreground to actually show you that the camera has made that move. Typically when you're recording video, you want your shutter speed to be twice that of the frame rate. So if you're shooting at 24p, you want your shutter speed to be 1/48th of a second or 1/50th of a second, depending on the camera. But when you're doing motion time lapses, you don't want to do that, because what you'll end up with in your time lapses is really jittery footage with the subjects jumping all around, the people, the cars, or whatever it is. They'll be going da 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 all over the place because it's capturing that photo with no really good motion in it. You want motion blur to make them look nice and smooth and fluid. So instead, I recommend slowing down your shutter speed to maybe 1/15th of a second, 1/10th, 1/25th. It just kind of depends on what you're actually filming. I guarantee you it's gonna make your time lapses look so much smoother when you do this. Now, the only problem you may run into when you slow your shutter speed down is overexposure. So obviously keep your ISO down as low as you can and crank your f-stop down as low as you can if you want that sort of look with everything in focus, or simply add an ND filter to your lens and then you'll be able to cut the light down and get the proper exposure. My final tip is to put your camera in full manual mode. You don't want to use auto exposure or auto focus for any of this, because when you have a lot of subjects moving in the video, it may try and hunt and change the focus. Or if you're doing like a sunrise or sunset, your exposure is definitely going to change, and you don't want your camera to compensate for that. So be sure you're in full manual mode. The build quality is really nice. It's made of a solid metal and there aren't really any plastic parts on it. Now, the whole slider itself, the way that it actually moves and operates is belt driven. So there is a rubber belt with little teeth on it on the inside track. It also comes with a nice padded zip up travel bag with pockets on the side to put all the little accessories and extra batteries into. It's really quick to set up. You can either put it directly on the ground using the legs that screw right onto the bottom of the slider for those low angle shots. You can also mount it directly onto your tripod using the 3/4 inch or 1/4 20-inch threads on the bottom. It even has a 502 Manfrotto plate on the bottom, so you could slide it right onto your tripod head if you want to do that. You also need to pop a battery into it. It uses the small standard Sony FW50 batteries, which surprisingly lasts really long in this slider. I used it for 3 to 4 hours at a time and did not have to change the battery once. It also comes with a cable that allows you to plug a USB power bank directly into the slider as well. So if you're going to be doing long motion time lapses that last like half a day or a full day, you can plug a USB power bank directly into it and not worry about the slider ever dying or running out of power. Now, in order to make this slider work, you have to download and use the app to control it, because there are no buttons on it to make it go back and forth, or even a power button to turn it on and off. Make sure you search the App Store or Google Play Store for the English version of this app. But even when you download and install that one, there was still a lot of Chinese in it and different things labeled in Chinese, and I don't speak Chinese, so that did make it a little bit difficult to figure out what certain different things did. So it took me quite a bit of time playing around with it to figure out what it actually does and how to operate it. To get the time lapse actually set up, you do need to set the A and B points. So slide it over to one side, then hit OK. Slide it over to the other side, then hit OK. And then the next thing you need to do is go in and set the interval for the time lapse. So you set maybe every 10 seconds it's going to take a photo, and then how many photos do you want to take? So maybe set that to 100, and then you also want to put in your shutter speed, which maybe is like half a second or something like that. And once you do that, all you need to do is press A to B or B to A and hit run or hit play, and then it's going to start doing that time lapse for you. So it is really simple once you know how to run it, but I'm hoping that they come out with an update for the app soon so that everything's in English and they fix a couple of those little bugs. It also comes with multiple cables for different cameras that are used for releasing the shutter on your camera. So if you're using a camera that doesn't already have a time-lapse app built into it, like the GoPros or the Sony cameras, you can actually use this cable to plug directly into your camera and then right into the slider, and then the slider itself will actually trigger the shutter on your camera. I was super impressed with how smooth and consistent the slides were. It actually does a really great job of just getting standard video slides. I'm not sure the exact weight limit on this, but I did put my A7S on it with a cage and a heavier lens, and it still ran perfectly. So obviously it can handle anything from like a GoPro or an iPhone all the way up to a DSLR that's rigged out a little bit. Besides the app being a little bit finicky, there are not a lot of cons to this slider. Honestly, one of the only things that I noticed was that sometimes the slider has a little bit of give in it, and it'll kind of rock a little to the left or a little to the right. And it didn't always do this, but when I had run a lot of time lapses, the little base plate on the bottom became a little bit loose, and so it caused it to rock a little bit. And it was easily fixed with an Allen wrench. I just went in and tightened it down again, and then it was super rigid and didn't give me any of that play. But I would recommend that they change that and actually weld that base plate onto the bottom so that there's no give in it and nothing becomes loose at all. I don't think I'll ever go back to those locked off tripod time lapses again, because I just love the dynamic look that the motion time lapses give you. They just add so much cinematic quality to your time lapses. I'm really looking forward to making a lot more time lapses with this motion slider. So if you are interested in picking one up, definitely check out the link in the description below. If you want to learn how to light and shoot better videos, hit subscribe right now. I have so many more videos coming out in shooting, editing, everything like that. All right, I'll see you in the next video.